cropping systems. And begin. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm Pravalika Reddy. And so sorry for the delay. So let me introduce my topic for today. And today I'm going to discuss about the conservation agriculture with high-end horticulture crops. Okay. So first, let me give a slight introduction about why we are going for conservation agriculture. What are the risks we are facing right now in the, particularly I'll talking about the Asian countries or throughout the world. So there is an very growing threat of food insecurity because there is an increasing population. So we have the risk of growing food insecurity. We have poverty, and also there are many depleting natural resources where we are going for our agriculture production. We are not able to sustain our natural resources. So we are going for depletion of those natural resources. And also there is a risk of climate change. In fact, agriculture not only is affected by the climate change, even agriculture contributes for the climate change. And there are the many other factors which are responsible for this non-sustainability of agriculture systems. So some of these non-sustainable systems, non-sustainable factors which influence agriculture are the technological mess. So we have very modern equipments and modern machineries or modern innovative ideas where we have incorporated into agriculture. Maybe in the initial years of our usage, it may be a good asset or which may increase the profit for the farmers. But in turn, it also resulted in the decrease in our polluting our environment or decreasing our natural biodiversity. And the second is use of fertilizers, pesticides, insecticides. As everyone is aware of this, there is no proper control for usage of pesticides or insecticides. There is like abundant use. Now, even there, if it is not required, a farmer goes for pesticide or insecticide, and there is no site-specific nutritional recommendation for any other crop. So there is excessive use of all these chemicals, which also pollutes our soil and also the environment. And the other thing is the unfavorable farming techniques. So I'll be discussing today the unfavorable farming techniques, what we are following, which resulted in this unsustainability. So these non-sustainable practices also results in the degradation of land, soil, whatever the nutrients, and this in turn affects our food security or poverty, and also the ultimately the human health. Okay. So these are some of the unfavorable farming techniques, major unfavorable farming techniques we are following right now as of now, which is a great risk to our environment and also the human health, etc. Okay, so the main three unfavorable farming techniques are tillage, monocropping, and burning of crop residue. So coming to the tillage, you're all well aware that intensive tillage practices. This is a traditional practice where every farmer in every country, not only in India, America, everywhere, they are very much, if there is a growing for any crop, they'll be going for intensive tillage. Especially if it is for root crop or any other crop which requires, they'll be going for intensive tillage without any second thought. So what are these tillage practices impact on the soil and also the environment? So these intensive tillage practices, they decreases the soil organic matter. So if the decrease in soil organic matter, it means there is no fertility in the soil. And also this intensive tillage practices also results in the soil structural degradation. That means we'll have soil aggregates, whatever it may be. So these are responsible for formation of our macro and micropores. So these soil aggregates are disturbed, and it also results in the soil compaction. You will be seeing the plow pan in case of tillage systems. This is mainly when we'll be going for tillage in the vegetable cropping systems. So you'll be seeing a soil compaction, and also we'll be seeing the less water infiltration rates, and you'll be seeing the water erosion or wind erosion, etc. And this soil compaction we'll see, like it will also restrict the root growth. So if we'll restrict the root growth, then the root cannot grow beyond the certain level, and it cannot absorb any nutrients or water from the deeper layers of the soil. And the surface sealing, this is also one of the demerit for if we'll do go for tillage. So this is the risk associated with tillage. So coming to the other techniques which we are following, it is monocropping. Monocropping is nothing but we are growing for single crop throughout the season, every year. For example, rice. If a farmer takes up rice, he's going for rice in the Kharif, pre-Kharif and Rabi. So this is called monocropping, continuous cultivation of a single crop. So this also results in the poor soil structure, because whatever we are going the crop, if you are going for single crop, the crop has certain plant stature and root structure. So it will be penetrating to you only at certain levels. And also the soil structure will be depleted, and also the quality will be lost in the soil. So again, this will be impacted on the poor growth of the plant. So result, the poor growth of the plant again will be like farmers, to avoid that poor plant growth, they'll be going for spraying any fertilizers and other things, which also pollutes the soil. And also, if you are going for continuous monocropping, there will be a population buildup of the any that particular pest or disease in the soil, and it will be spreading to the all the crops. Okay. So another one is burning of crop residue. I think this is a recent burning issue in the country itself, mainly in the areas of Haryana and Punjab. Farmers, after growing the Kharif crop, so there is no gap, there is no time period for them to grow for the next Rabi crop. So what they'll be doing, instead of using it, or what they'll be going for burning that residues or the stubbles, whatever left in the field. So to make them comfortable for the next crop, so simply they'll burn the crop residues. So as you can see the image, that is the crop residue burning. So this is also a problem for the environment, because whatever the uh, soil, you'll see like nitrogen or whatever the important constituents of that crop residue or even in the soil are lost to the environment. And also there are greenhouse gas emissions from that, which also pollutes the environment. And this is also one of the problem in Delhi. You can see that air pollution after winter, everyone will be like seeing in the news like there is a pollution in the Delhi. It is due to this thing, because the Haryana and Punjab farmers especially, they're growing for a burning of, throughout the country they are following this, but I'm saying it is an issue in the North India, especially in case of Punjab and Haryana, where they're going for stubble burning. So to overcome this, so whatever the unfavorable techniques I've explained, the tillage, burning crop residues or whatever it may be, and also the monocropping. So to address this issue, we need a sustainable system. We need a resource conserving technology which can address all these three factors. So that is conservation agriculture. So I'll explain you conservation, what is conservation agriculture. So first, conservation agriculture, it is a resource conserving technology. And this conservation agriculture is comprises of three principles. So that is minimum soil disturbance, permanent soil cover, and crop rotation. So coming to the minimal disturbance, in case of mechanical tillage, like whatever intensity tillage we are following, it disrupts in biological tillage system. So I'll explain you what is biological, because the soil is composed of many microorganisms. So these microorganisms, through their biological activity, it forms a stable soil aggregates. These stable soil aggregates have varied amounts of macro and micropores. These macro and micropores are responsible for air and water infiltration. So basically, this is biological tillage, that is done through the microorganisms or the biological organisms. So when we are going for this intensive mechanical tillage, this tillage disturbs the biological activity of the microorganisms. So we should stop that, because we are disrupting the biological soil flora and fauna through this intensive tillage. So whatever the advantages of this minimum tillage is that it maintains the proportion of macro and micropores, so that there will be an optimum proportion of gases in the root zone, and also it provides the pores for water infiltration. And one more thing, the major problem, weed. So by avoiding the tillage, we can also limit the re-exposure of the weed seeds which are already present in the soil, and we can also restrict their germination. And also, due to intensive tillage, I have told you whatever the carbon stored in the soil, it is released into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide and other gases which are responsible for the global warming. So we can also restrict that organic matter oxidation, and also release very little, very moderate organic matter oxidation can be seen in case of minimum soil tillage. So coming to the second principle, permanent soil cover. So permanent soil cover, whatever the biomass which is generated from our crops, it may be rice, wheat, or coming to the horticultural crops. After using the part, like I say, upper part, in case of carrot, we can go for the root, and the remaining biomass, it can be incorporated or it can be stored on the surface as such. And this is called the soil cover or the soil residue, not the crop residue. So the major benefit of this permanent soil cover is we can protect the soil from rain and sun. You can see the water erosion of the soil can be prevented by maintaining a surface of residue on the soil. And also in the soil there are like diversity of many diversity of soil microbes. So this soil, this biomass or crop residue which is on the surface, it also acts as a constant supply for constant supply of food those microorganisms. And this in turn, these microorganisms will also alter the microclimate. So the soil microclimate will be altered through these microorganisms. So these microorganisms, whatever the microclimate, it is altered. So it will be optimal or favorable for this any developing microorganisms, other microorganisms. And also it alters the microclimate of the root, so that there will be an proper soil biological activity, and you can see the diversity of flora and fauna in the soil. And other thing, there will be a carbon sequestration. The carbon will be stored in the soil. So this is the second principle which conservation agriculture follows. And coming to the third principle, crop rotation or intercropping. Crop rotation is nothing but you are growing for the diverse crops one after the other. That is crop diversification. Intercropping is nothing but you are growing parallelly, or like growing one crop and growing other crop parallelly. So in case of crop rotation, so the benefits are there will be a diverse nutrient supply to the soil microorganisms. And also the continuous crop, if you are going for the different crops, they'll be having the root structure which can penetrate into different depths. So when the root grows into a different depth, then you can explore the different nutrients, the nutrients which are leached into the different layers of the soil. So they can be absorbed by different crops. And also this cropping system or crop rotation, when it is incorporated within legume crops, then it is also one of the other good thing is that the legumes can do the biological nitrogen fixation. So they can fix the nitrogen and add nitrogen to the soil. So if we'll incorporate legumes, then in turn we can reduce the input for the fertilizers. And also the other benefit is like when we are going for the crop rotation, we are generally breaking the life cycle of a particular pest or a disease which is already stored in the soil. So minimal buildup of the pest and disease population can be seen if you're going for crop rotation. And it also enhances the biodiversity of the soil flora and fauna. So following these three conservation principles, there will be a proper output of these things which I have mentioned. So you can see an assured productivity from the crop. And also if we are going for minimum tillage, so there is no input cost for fuel, manual labor, or etc. So you can get an assured returns. And also the efficiency, whatever the fertilizer or water, then will be the resource use efficiency is high in case of conservation agriculture. And the other thing is emissions. As we are not doing any tillage, the carbon is stored it in the soil, so it is not escaped into the atmosphere to do any global warming effect or any emission. And also we are using the whatever the leftover residue we are incorporating into the soil. We are not burning it. So in turn, it also decreases the emissions from the agriculture. And resilient, like we can have the resilient crop, even it loses its strength, also it can regain it back by following this conservation agriculture principles. So this is the detailed explanation what I've explained from the conservation agriculture. One is crop diversification, minimal soil movement, and soil coverage. So what are all the benefits of that? See, the crop diversification, it reduces the occurrence of pests and diseases, it controls the weeds, and also it adequately distributes nutrients in different soil profiles. So we can also reduce the economic risk by following the crop diversification, and also the climatic risk. In case of minimal soil movement, we can avoid compaction and soil surface sealing, and it can also reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. It can improve the soil structure, and it can also increases the biological activity. So these are all the principles of conservation agriculture, and which are very important for maintaining the sustainable system. So in this, I'm going to talk about the horticulture crop. So generally, this CA, it can be adopted in like any crops, irrespective of the cereals, horticulture crops, or any crop. But mainly the most of the work or most of the farmers follows under cereals. But very less people are concentrating this CA in horticulture. So, and even it is also independent of the land holdings. It may be a small land holding or large holding. You can go for CA. So in case of conservation agriculture and horticulture, so what is the scope? So you all know that vegetable crops are very intensive crops because they requires very intensive maintenance, especially for the root crops. The farmers will be going for very thorough plowing, cultivation, harrowing, etc. So we can reduce that tillage and we can go for zero tillage. So this is one of the things. And also the horticulture crops, horticulture crops comprises of vegetables, their annual crops, okay, and other medicinal and aromatic crops, floriculture crops, whatever it may be, they are all annual crops. And there are other department which is fruits and plantation crops. So these are generally the perennial crops. So it will take a while after planting. It will take a while for at least 4 to 5 years for their bearing habit. So whatever, and also other thing, they have the wider spacing. The spacing between in case of perennials is very wider. So this offers a scope for growing any annual crop, irrespective of horticulture crop. You can go for the field crop also. So this is the major advantage of horticulture, perennial horticulture cropping systems, where we can go for ground crops. But in case of agriculture or cereal crops, it is not an case because they simply focus on the only one crop. And as this fruit and plantation crops, I have told you, they have wider spacing. They are much more prone to wind erosion or the water erosion. So whatever the topsoil, the rich topsoil where we're having the highest amount of nutrients of the soil organic matter, if there was no any cover, so it will be run off through the from the topsoil. And also the biomass generation from the horticulture crops, it is more because in case of perennials, we'll be going for many intercultural operations like pruning, etc. So that pruning waste, and in case of coconut or areca nut, the shed over leaves that are called fronds. And in case of coconut also, you can have the shells, husks, etc. So there is a large amount of biomass which is generated from the horticulture crop. So this biomass can be incorporated or used in case of ground crops, whatever you are going for in the perennial cropping system. So we are following the other principle of C also, that is crop residue. And there is no question of like there is no question that we don't have any crop, because horticulture crop itself generates much more crop residue. And as it is offered, I told you, perennial cropping system with ground crops, even you'll have an assured income from any crop, because even in case of a crop failure, if you are going for the multiple crops, then you'll have an income assured from a certain crop. So in case of CA, that what I'm discussing, perennial based cropping systems, there are many, generally perennial crop itself improves the soil structure. There is nothing that it depletes the soil structure, etc. The perennial crop improves the soil structure, and they have the capacity to sequester the carbon more than the annual crops or any cereal crops. So perennial crops itself can improve the soil quality and the structure. But whatever the interspaces in case of perennial crops, they are much more prone to risk. So this annual vegetable crops we have growing, that was also grown with intensive tillage system. So instead of going with the tillage system, those annual crops, it should be grown as such in the interspaces. These annual vegetable crops, generally because we are going for tillage and there is no ground cover, so it results in the structural degradation of the soil. So, and this interspaces should be grown more with the legumes. So as I mentioned, growing legumes also one of the advantage where we can reduce the input cost of nitrogen, because the legumes have the capacity to biological nitrogen fixation. And these intercrops can be grown with many profitable vegetable crops or medicinal crops. In case of vegetable crop, carrot, onion, any leafy vegetable, or in case we can go for any medicinal crop or aromatic crop, mint, any aromatic grass, which especially if you're going for any medicinal aromatic oil, they have much more high value crops, because the oil extracted from those is very much price in the world market and the global market. So these are high value crops. Vegetables, whatever, they're all high value crops, but they're mostly utilized in the local thing. But these oils are very industrial, commercial things. So this in any crop which is suitable for intercropping in the perennial horticulture systems by following the CA system. So generally, in case of vegetable crops, there are tillage techniques. There are three tillage techniques. As I've told you, no till, and the other is permanent bed, and the other is strip tillage. So let me explain you what is no till. So I have told you no till. That means we are not going for any sort of implement, equipment or machinery. We are using it in the soil. So that is like directly we are going for sowing and the fertilizer application. And whatever the residue, at least 30% of the residue will be in the field. And this is no till. In case of strip till is nothing but along the rows, you will make a very narrow till strips. So like a ridge, you will have very narrow strip. So you will be sowing whatever the crop in the on the strip, and between the interspaces, you will be covering with the residue. In case of permanent bed, so as you can see in the image, there will be a permanent bed. So the between the channels will be disturbed, but that bed won't be disturbed for any season. So this and is also in raised condition. So this will be permanently undisturbed condition. So you can grow for crop even season after season. So it is also a permanent no-till bed, and it is these three till innovative tillage techniques are suitable for any crop. So as I've told you that horticulture offers the interspaces offers much more scope for CA. So these are the images which I have worked on. So you can see that mango based system first thing. So with the mango system, it is under no tillage, but just we have made the ridges, that's it, no disturbance. So in case of mango based cropping system, we have grown French bean. It's a vegetable. And in between the rows also, we have gone for residue. So in case of residue, we can use both the dead mulch and also the live mulch. So in case of dead mulch, it's a rice, straw, husk, etc. They comes under dead mulch. We can also go for live mulch, seam, lathyrus, etc. So I have gone. There is a scope for both the live mulch and dead mulch, which can be sown in between the rows of the main crop. So they both act as a mulch, and also they've also fixed the biological nitrogen in case of if you use for any legume. So that's the thing. And in case of second image, you can see that it is totally covered. That actually crop you cannot see, but there is a bare crop in between. It's a fruit crop. So this bare crop, it is totally the interspaces are grown with an coal crop. Sorry, I mean cucurbit crop. It is in bottle gourd. So as you can see, the ground is totally covered, and we didn't do any tillage in case of that system. And the second is coconut based cropping system. In case of coconut based cropping system also, without disturbing the soil, we are going for any vegetable, medicinal, any fruit tree also. If a plant is around the age of other 15 or 10 years, then you have to go for if the crown is bigger size, like if the perennial tree is more in size, if it cannot if it doesn't penetrate the sunlight into the orchard, then you have to go for the shade tolerant crop. But in case of coconut, there is a much more scope for any crop because it infiltrates the sunlight into the orchard. So what are all these benefits of this CA? So generally, CA is very conceptual. You can apply it to any crop. It doesn't mean that you have to apply to a certain crop and it is not applicable to other crops. Generally, it is a very conceptual thing and it can be applied to any crop, any crop. And what are the benefits? So as I've told you, carbon. So the main thing which revolves around CA is the carbon. So if we are going for CA, the much more amount of carbon is stored in the soil, and this soil, it acts as a sink for the carbon dioxide, and it improves the soil organic carbon. So this increase in the soil organic carbon, then ultimately we are reducing the global warming emissions, any carbon dioxide, any emissions from the agriculture. And also, it also improves the soil fertility. Generally, by following the CA, we can reduce about 40% of the annual increase in the carbon dioxide emissions. About 40%, we can reduce such amount of carbon emission if we go for adopting conservation agriculture. So we can reduce the global warming impact also. As I've told you, it also improves the soil structure and it also maintains the soil aggregates, macro and micropores. So it also improves the water infiltration and also the gas infiltration to the deeper layers of the root and also the soil for man and also for the microorganisms. And it also improves, I've told you, it also is a good habitat for the diverse organisms, even from the soil borne fungi to bacteria, insects, etc. So it's a good habitat for the diverse flora and fauna. And it also reduces the cost of cultivation. I've told you, assured income, we'll get the returns, but whatever the input cost, it is less. We'll get the output, but the input cost is very less because we are saving on the fuel, energy, and the labor, etc. So we can ultimately reduce the cost of production and increase the benefits. And also nutrient and water efficiency. Whatever the like mulch or crop residue, it also conserves the water, so there won't be any excessive evaporation from the surface. So you'll be having the water, even if after giving the irrigation, it will be stored for longer time. So there also water efficiency is more and nutrient use efficiency is more. And especially the next one, this thing, we can enhance the food and nutritional security. And present, there is an already a change in the mindset of everyone. Like instead of the quantity of food, whatever taking, it is changed to the nutrients. So how much nutrients we are taking intake. Okay, so by if you are going for this horticulture based cropping system, then you'll be having the diverse crop. So you'll be going for diverse crop and you'll be having like more yield, and also will reduce the lower the food prices also, and in turn we can also protect our soil and environment. So we can also, by using this residue, we are also overcoming the difficulty of that residue burning. So we'll be going for residue decomposition and soil structural improvement, etc. And as I've mentioned, we are going for less input and we are going for the more output. And one more burning problem in case of CA is incidence of weeds. So this is faced in any system, but it is much more in case of CA in the initial years. But if you'll go for the long-term thing, if you're going for long-term maintenance of your plot with conservation agriculture, there will be a much more reduction in the weeds, and also for we can reduce the cost of weedicides also. So these are all the benefits I've explained here regarding the conservation agriculture. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am, for a wonderful presentation. I will take up the questions from the participants now. The first question is, what does high-end agriculture cropping system mean? How does it compare with regular horticulture?
Okay. High-end, because there are some crops which have much more demand in the international level and the national level. So it mainly talks about that crops. Generally, because many people are like, if you go for farming, then you'll see very common crops, vegetables and etc. There are certain perennial crops. They won't be going for any perennial crops. They'll be going for any annual crops. So there is a much more valuable for this perennial crops, medicine, aromatic crops.
Okay. What made you take an interest in this topic?
Okay. Actually, this is my work which I have done in my doctoral thesis, and it is a project work I have done, and it is basically funded by World Bank and the ICR, Indian Council of Agriculture. And I was in the project as a horticulture student, and I worked upon it. So it took me interest to tell everyone about how I worked and what is the benefits of the system.
Okay. I'll move on to the next question. Can you give any example of an high-end horticultural system that we can visit?
Actually, as I've told you, like much more the work has been done under the agronomic or cereal crops. So there is no system particular where I can show you it is going on, but it is in very initial stages. I think I'll let you know when it is done. But this, whatever I have shown you the pics, it is basically done in West Bengal. So they are in very juvenile stage, but there is no proper horticulture system.
Okay.
This is the first time actually everyone they are gone for single crop, not as a multi-tier crop. So they have grown for single crop for carrot or onion, or you can say any other crop. They have grown single crop. But there is no such system wherever it is established as such in case of perennial annual system.
Okay, thank you very much. We have now completed the round of questions. On behalf of agricultureinformation.com, we like to thank Ms. Pravalika Reddy for the talk and for answering the questions. I like to thank all the participants in the meeting. This meeting will now be closed.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.